Coming up next on the Union Label will be a conversation with two retirees from Steelworkers Local 550 at the Atomic plant and a representative of the Professional Case Management Program. Please join us. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Let me introduce my guests today. They are James Harbison and Fred Buckley, retired from Local 550, and Stuart Tolar, who is representative of the Professional Case Management Program. Now, you notice when we started, I called it the Atomic plant, which shows how old I am.
Yeah, I understand.
I bet you all were there when it was Union Carbide. Yeah, right. So
Carbide and Carbon Chemical Company.
that's right. Even before that, yes, absolutely, going way, way back.
That was when it was being built.
Right. Stuart, tell us about this wonderful program.
Well, the program that I guess is the basis for all of the things that we do now was a law that was passed in 2000, and the first resource center, which happened to be Paducah, was opened in 2001. I was the first manager for the resource center, and I worked in the EOICPA program. It's Energy Employees Occupational Illness and Compensation Program Act was the official term. I worked in that program, managing the office, and then I wound up traveling all over the country with the program. There are 11 resource centers in the country that file claims for people that have worked at not only the Paducah gaseous diffusion plant or the Atomic plant, but more than 350 sites around the country that the Department of Energy had oversight for. And this program to date has paid out, I checked the statistics last night, has paid out over $9 billion, that's with a B, nationally. And on claims that the Resource Center in Paducah has filed, over $658 million, over $500 million has been paid out in compensation and money for medical benefits under the law. That is still going. I retired from that program in June of 2011, but I'm working with a company in part-time and helping with another benefit that's part of that. That's part of the medical benefits under the law.
And the benefit helps people stay at home.
That's correct. Professional Case Management, they have offices around the country at all the major sites. And they have an office here in Paducah. In fact, it's next door to the Resource Center, just across from Milner Orr Funeral Home. And they have nurses that work for them. They have a certificate of need. They've met all the Kentucky state requirements for that. And if a person has been compensated on the program and has the medical card, and they need home health care, where they can stay at home, as you said, they will work with the individual. They'll work with the individual's physician. They'll get the necessary approvals from the Department of Labor, who administers the program and pays for this. They handle everything from A to Z for the individual. The individual never pays anything. All the billing is done by Professional Case Management to the Department of Labor once they approve the home health care. They hire nurses. They're registered nurses. They are local nurses. Not that there's anything wrong with contract nurses, but these are their employees. And they can provide shift coverage, around the clock shift coverage for individuals who need that once it's determined that that is their need. But again, they do the assessments. They help with the assessment with the individual that's been compensated under the program. They just handle it from that point on to relieve a lot of a burden of an individual having to worry about paying and then filing a claim with someone and being reimbursed for that. So it's a great benefit as part of this law. The compensation, initial compensation that people receive is, we've seen it change lives. It's just made lives better in many cases, and as I said, that there's over $658 million been paid out in Western Kentucky. And that's a lot of money, but it's changed lives. They've given money to their churches. They've put children through college, and gotten out of debt, and but there's that medical benefit that's even a great advantage, a greater advantage, and then this added on top of it if a person needs that home health care. And there's a number of people in Paducah that are receiving that care from them presently.
And what you all do is you help screen. What do you all do?
We contact individuals that worked out there, some now and some in the past, and get them lined up, get physicals and everything. And they get excellent physicals, and it's all free if you worked at USEC or Union Carbide or whatever.
Right. How long did you all work there?
I worked here 38 years, been retired 23.
Wow.
Over 23.
So you went to work, when did you go to work out there?
February 4th, 52. Went to work down at the when it was first came in hiring down at the Ferguson building before the plant was built.
Is that right?
I hired in the guard department. They hired 10 guards and 2 firemen. And then after the plant we moved out, and I was in the guard department for about 10 years, and lieutenant and fire and guard. Then went into Cascade operation. The last 20 years, I ran the control room in the 33 building, Cascade operating the largest building out there. Yeah.
And you what did you do?
I hired in 1968 and retired in 1997. And I was in process maintenance, so I was all over the place.
Yeah. Well, tell us, any of you all, obviously the advantage if you can stay at home. You really want to stay at home if you can. And people, regrettably my dad can't. He's in assisted living. He'd love to be at home, but he just can't. I mean, just talk about that aspect of it, the fact that, you know, it's so good for your mental health as much as your physical, if you can do it.
Well, as these gentlemen did, I worked there as well for 32 years. I hired in the same year that Mr. Harbison did, and know a lot of the people that work there as Fred and James do, and to see them ill now, it's heartbreaking in many respects. But I think if I think about my own life, I'd want to stay at home as long as I could and be taken care of. And you never want to think that you're a burden to your family. And I know your father's aged, and you don't consider him a burden.
No, of course not.
But what some of these benefits do under this law helps the family. I don't want to say relieve a burden, but it just helps them mentally. They know they're getting good care, they're getting professional care.
I think that's the point, it's professional care.
Sure. But it all starts, in many cases, with Fred and James, as they encourage the workers or former workers to get that physical. And it may confirm that they're okay, they're good in health, that's going to make someone feel better. But if there is an illness, then they have a diagnosis from their own physician as well, then they can go file a claim, and then they may be compensated for that. And then as the time progresses, if they need what professional case management offers, then that is there as well. But it starts with these guys or with their physician with a diagnosis of an illness, and that's why it's so important for people to get these physicals. And we always encourage people to do that. I mean, it's one of the great benefits, it's free. But they do some extensive testing for people. One of the important things they test for is exposure to beryllium. And that is something that's compensated under this law, beryllium disease. But not only is this physical available to workers of the atomic plant, the gaseous diffusion plant, but trade unions that have worked, members that have worked out there, they also can have that physical. Now they need to contact their local, and there's a gentleman by the name of Joe Hudson that works and helps the trades, and their members get the physical. But it's the same physical that those of us who worked at the gaseous diffusion plant receive.
So go ahead, tell me exactly what you all do. You're volunteers. You go out to the union hall, work out of the hall.
Well, we get paid for doing what we do.
Okay, you get But so what exactly do you do?
Well, we go down to Union Hall. We're there 5 days a week. And
from what hours to what hours?
Well, I'm down there on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to about 1, and Fred's down there 8 hours on Tuesdays and Fridays. And we just more or less contact people, get on the phone, just make a lot of contacts like that. We also have outreach programs where go out to plant about once every 5-6 weeks in cafeteria and talk to people out there. So, and plus we have a CAT scan too. We hadn't mentioned yet. That's not everybody's eligible for that, but a lot of them are, and we've it's been a lifesaver to a lot of people. It's picked up blockages in their heart, even though they wasn't looking for that. And one individual came in to get the CAT scan, and it just happened to get a little bit of his kidneys. And he didn't know he had a problem at all. As it turned out, he had a mass about the size of a golf ball, and it was cancer. But he had no earthly idea. So it's been a lifesaver to a lot of people, and you know, just not the physical itself, but the CAT scan also, which that comes with it.
Yes, they have. They're primarily looking for lung cancer. Is the primary purpose for the CT scan. But in the scan, they see so much stuff. We've had heart valves, aneurysm, gallbladders, gallstones, and all different things. If they see anything wrong, they'll notify them immediately. And so there's a lot of people alive today that wouldn't have been if they hadn't had the scan. It comes in, we were down for 3 years for lack of funds, but didn't have the scan. It comes in 1 week a month. Now, they initially started back up. They said it's going to be in once every 2 or 3 months. But they had such a backlog that they rescheduled. It's in usually about 1 week a month. And
it's a portable,
a 40-foot trailer.
It's in a trailer truck.
It rotates. It rotates
to
to Portsmouth, Phenol, just a week at a time around.
So you make appointments to have it done, or how does that work?
You have to.
New York makes the appointments.
They do all the scheduling. New York does.
Now, what's in New York to do that?
Queens College. They're the head of the
They're
program.
the contractor with.
Okay.
Yeah, Queens College.
Energy, is it Department of Energy or Department of Labor?
Well, it's Department of Energy that funds the physical and that part of it, and but Queens College is the contractor for the government.
Administrator.
The administrator of it. But these guys, these fellows here, they will help make the contact with Queens College and helping get it scheduled, or that the individual can call themselves. It's an 800 number that they can call and get it set up.
Another part of this program is the hearing loss part. Tell us about that.
Yes, we just got this within the last year, I guess. If you're qualified, and that depends on the crafts you work and things like that at the plant, well, you can get hearing aids, and also once you get the hearing aids, you get impairment. That's just actually money for the loss of some hearing you have. So, and Stuart and them, I guess they probably instigated that. I don't know. It came under Subtitle E. Is that right, Stuart?
That's where it would. That's where it would fall under Part B, or Part E rather, excuse me, of the law. Part B covers primarily what we've been concerned with over the years are cancers and Beryllium disease. There's another part to it that is primarily for the miners out in some of the western states, is silicosis. But then later in the program, I think it's in 2005, Congress passed a change in the law, and it became Part E. That covers illnesses that are caused by exposures to any toxins or chemicals, and it can be a causal link to those illnesses. And there have been people that have been compensated for hearing loss, any number of things. It's the most unusual thing I've ever seen, but a lot of illnesses that have been associated with the chemicals that are used at the plant, have been used for years. I've seen cancers, like skin cancer, denied under Part B, which is primarily for exposure to radiation. They would be compensated under Part E because that skin cancer was caused by an acid or some other chemical or toxin at the plant. Not the radiation, but something else. So it's, we always encourage people to file a claim. If they have an illness, file a claim. There's no effort involved. The Resource Center will do that here at Paducah. There's a wonderful staff there, great management of that office, plenty of case workers, and it doesn't cost anything. And if a person receives compensation, what the law determines is a compensation, they get it all. The Resource Center is paid by the government. They're contractors to the Department of Labor, and they're paid to do what they do. So the individual, if they receive compensation, is not like paying someone a fee for handling that claim for them.
How is this funded, the program?
Well, there's the funding that Mr. Harbison and Mr. Buckley receive to do the physicals. If it's my understanding that Congress funds that through budgets to the Department of Energy on an annual basis or whenever those budgets are approved. And I know that our representatives in Congress have lobbied to receive that money, and as Mr. Harbison said, that get the funding back for like the lung scans and things like that. But the Part B and Part E, the OICPA law, is an entitlement law. It's not dependent upon funding to the Department of Labor in their budget every year. Now, their administrative cost of the program is part of their funding. But the law itself and the compensation, when a person receives compensation from this, it comes from the U.S. Treasury. It's a entitlement law, just like Social Security is an entitlement law, just like black lung disease is compensation is an entitlement law. So unless Congress repeals that law, this law for workers that have worked at Department of Energy sites around the country, it will go on until the last person who ever worked dies. The Department of Energy has a liability, potential liability for every worker, every construction worker, everyone that's been on these sites around the country in the Department of Energy program for the development and testing of nuclear weapons. That was what it was started for. And of course, the Paducah Gases Diffusion Plant was instrumental in that activity for a number of years. The product that we made there, it was all energized and focused on that, for that purpose, in the development and testing of nuclear weapons. But there's a lot of sites around the country, and we encourage, like the tradespeople, get involved in this, because you may have had workers that worked on projects at Savannah River in South Carolina, or Portsmouth, Ohio, or maybe at Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, a lot of different places. There are a lot of sites that are covered under this law that if I started mentioning them, you would say, yeah, I know about that place. I've heard about that. And so it is a great benefit for potentially for people who are ill. It doesn't mean that everyone that's sick is going to file a claim and be compensated, but it has to be determined that it could have been as a result of their activity there. Now, there's several sites that are covered under what a part of the law called a special exposure cohort, and there's 22 cancers that are identified where there's an assumption of causation for those 22 cancers. There's a lot of details about the law that we don't have enough time to discuss today, but I would encourage anyone who's worked at any of these sites, they should file a claim.
How do you all decide who to call up? Do you just word of mouth? How do you decide?
Well, a combination of word of mouth, and then, like I say, we do outreach events, so go downtown, walk around town just to try to find people that you might recognize. And once word gets out, a lot of times people approach us when they see us about getting a physical. And like I say, we use the phone a whole lot.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Sort of just like running down leads.
Yeah, it's enjoyable, really.
Different organizations we belong to,
Mm-hmm.
and workers that we knew worked there.
Yeah. And of course, I guess a side of that was you get to reminisce with old friends.
That's true.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We get to renew acquaintances. We'd never normally
has.
see a lot of these guys again, and we get to see them through this program.
Yeah.
One of the fun things that I used to do with Mr. Harbison would be to go to the plant around lunchtime, and we'd go in the cafeteria, and people just come up and talk to us that we hadn't seen in a while, and he always managed to find people that would sign up, want to get that physical. And sometimes it takes that personal interaction with them on the spot.
That's it. A lot of people, even though they've heard about the program, they're just waiting for somebody to approach them rather than approach somebody. Just
And I'll tell you something else. We were talking before the program started, when Stuart and Gene Gross were on this program many years ago, I heard exactly what they said, but I thought, well, yeah, my dad worked for McGraw Construction, but it probably wouldn't work with him. And so Stuart said, did you not hear what I said? And I said, yeah, I did, but you know. And so he said, no, take a shot at it. And I went home and saw my dad, and he said the same thing. Yeah, well, that was a long time ago, and I don't have any pay stubs. And I said, they said they do this for free. He said, well, okay. And they did the whole thing, and he got the compensation, and it was a godsend to us, because my mother, God rest her soul, spent 5 years in a nursing home, and that is extremely expensive. And in fact, when for the longest time, he was sort of a consultant on that. People would come by the house and say, do you remember me? And if he did, he would say he did. But if he didn't, he wouldn't lie. He would not lie.
He signed a lot of affidavits.
He did.
I've signed a lot over the years that I've worked with.
We get a lot of them.
You do, and it's a wonderful program. And I guess the thing that I always think of an affidavit as a court document, but no, it's incredibly easy. And then he wound up getting some more compensation later. But do you run into that, like some of you tell them what this is all about, and they say, well, yeah, but it wouldn't really affect me. Do you get a lot of that?
Oh yeah, a lot of people don't. Well, they don't really think there's anything wrong with them.
Right.
That's what we tell them. We can't guarantee them anything, but you need to try.
Right.
And see what you got.
Yeah.
But
I think the wonderful part of all these programs is you get help every step of the way.
Sure.
Because as I said, my dad worked there. Well, when McGraw Construction built the plant, and he said, well, no pay stubs, no record. Well, they had all that. He wouldn't have any idea where to look. He worked a lot of places since then. And it was a terrific program. And the part that I think is so wonderful is that the burden of proof is not on you. It's just, they'll take the ball and run with it.
Right. True. They do most of the work.
Yeah.
And in many cases, it starts with Jim and Fred in encouraging those people to get a physical. I think men typically don't go to a doctor, don't want to go to a doctor.
That's true.
And they encourage the men and women that have worked there to get that physical. You know, we would hope that no one's ever ill, you know, or no one ever receives a compensation. To do that, that means they had to be ill. But as Fred said, they have diagnosed a lot of things that people didn't know. I remember one case in particular, a man had, you mentioned this, you just kind of briefly mentioned it, but a man had an aneurysm and was not aware of it, and it saved his life.
Oh yeah.
Because he was able to have surgery then. Now that wasn't covered under the law, but that getting that physical did it.
Made him aware of it.
And if a person doesn't go get the physical, but they go to their own personal family doctor and they have a diagnosis, then they can use that to file a claim. But it all starts with these guys here, really, or their personal physician. But we just encourage anyone that worked there.
And just recently, they've got added to the program. If it's been over 3 years since you had a physical, you're eligible for another one, a renewal, you know, to update things.
Every 3 years, yeah.
And that's really been good for the program.
Did they have to go to a certain place for a physical, or can they?
Yes.
Baptist Healthcare in Paducah has 2 doctors there.
Don't have to travel.
So what does the physical entail? What exactly do they do for a physical?
Well, I think, like Stuart said, they look for beryllium. That's one of the main things they look for in your blood work. So it's a chest X-ray. That's in your blood work.
And the blood work.
And your chest X-ray also.
Right.
And they just look for different things that your regular doctors don't look for, because they're not occupational doctors, where ours are occupational doctors. X-rays are looked at by B readers, which we don't have any in the area around here. So there's just advantages to it. That's what I tell everybody. You know, they say, "Well, I get a physical." I said, "Well, yeah, you do, and it's probably a good physical, but it's not as good as ours." And it's not.
These are looking for occupational diseases,
right?
Something caused by their work,
right?
Yeah.
So let's just say somebody calls you all at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday. How quickly can all this take place?
They could usually get a physical within a month. Or maybe less, you know.
And so okay, let's say a worker, 80-year-old guy calls you up 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. and he says, okay, I'm interested in this program. Then what does he do at that point, or what would she do at that point?
We get all the information from him, his name, mailing address, things of this nature, and we fax that to New York, and in New York, in turn,
Queens
calls
College.
him. Yeah, Queens
Right,
College in New
okay.
York.
Okay.
And they call him.
They do all the scheduling for the CT scan and the physicals.
Okay.
They do all the scheduling.
And then the mobile CT scan, where is that set up?
At the Union
At the
Hall.
Union Hall.
Okay, out on Carroll Road.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So they come and do that. How long does that take?
Well, they spend more time with us than they do getting the scan.
Right.
But,
Paperwork.
Paperwork takes about 5 minutes, and the scan takes about 3.
Okay. And then once that's done, when do they get the results?
If they see anything, a red flag or anything like that, they'll call them within 10 days. Like they do, no news is good news. So if they don't hear anything, that's a good sign.
And let's say a follow-up was required. Let's say they did perish the thought, find something that was bad. Then what would happen?
Well, they would get another scan. They'd set it up on your first scan. If they see something suspicious, then you'll come back 3 months and do another one. And then if it's still there and hadn't changed anything, they'll have to come back maybe 6 months. I think they go up to about a year and a half, something like that. And if it's the same, they just figure it's calcium, something like that.
Right.
The scan will pick up a nodule in your lung like the end of a pen.
Wow.
And if they find one, they'll bring you back in 3 or 6 months, and they don't give you a full dose of radiation. They go back to just that one spot
Right.
to see if it's changed or grown or anything.
Right.
Just to bring it update.
Right.
There was one individual that had the scan, and they saw something in his lungs so deep and so small, they couldn't get a biopsy of it. They said in order to find out what it is, they'd have to do major surgery. And they said, it might be for nothing, but it might be cancer too. Well, he went ahead and did it, and it turned out it was cancer, and that's been, I guess, 12, 13 years ago, and he's still doing fine.
Wow. That's wonderful.
Hadn't had a problem since.
Yeah.
It's been rewarding, very rewarding
Oh
program.
yeah.
That's a very important benefit. This law is great. As I said, over a $500 billion
That's amazing.
here in Western Kentucky, over $9 billion nationally. But it starts, not every time, but it starts many times with these guys here. Now, if they've been to their own physician, they've gotten a diagnosis, that's good too.
Right.
They don't have to have this physical to file a claim,
Right.
but it's something that sometimes people don't have a doctor. They won't go to a doctor.
Right.
But that physical is,
Right.
they should have it. But
In the few seconds we have left, how can people contact you all?
Well, they can call the Union Hall anytime.
And the number is?
Is 270-442-3668. My cell number is 556-4489.
270-748-2070 at any time, day or night.
Also-
I get many calls or more when I'm off than I do at work.
We're also in the book. So
Yes. And the address, the Union Hall address is?
Gosh.
2525 Carroll Road,
Okay. Okay.
42001.
And close to, what's a close place to it? What's close to the hall out
Well,
there?
there's a ironworkers hall right across the
That's
street
right.
from it.
782.
Yes.
That's it.
Intersection 45 and Carroll Road,
That's
305.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you all for coming. We're out of time, and we'll come back in and talk about this some more.
Be
Thank
glad
you.
to.
I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.